Hi, everyone, and welcome to our Thought Leadership series on the future of construction technology, brought to you by Symphony Technology Solutions and Gilbane Building Company, and sponsored by The Inside. My name is Katie Galley, Marketing Manager here at Symphony, and I will be one of your co-moderators for today's discussion. And I am joined by my other co-moderator, Matt Micheno, Vice President of Symphony. How are you doing, Matt?
Doing well. How about you?
I am doing awesome. I'm super excited to dive in with our conversation today with our great panelists. So today we have VDC managers at Gilbane, Joe Perkins and Michelle Leonard, and VDC engineers at Gilbane, Grace Kennedy and Taylor Oswald. How are you guys doing?
Great.
Ready to go.
Doing good.
Good, thanks.
Awesome. Yeah, well, we're super excited too, ready to go. So to kick us off, can you guys tell us just a little quick, pitch how you guys got to where you are today in the industry? If we want to start with Joe, then we'll go to Michelle, Grace, and then Taylor. So Joe, you want to kick us off?
Absolutely. I spent 25 years or so in architecture and engineering design. Worked with several mid-sized and small firms around Atlanta. And then in 2011, I switched from there to the dark side and came to construction with Turner Construction, and learned about BIM and VDC roles that were available. It was pretty interesting. One of the reasons I am a VDC manager today was because I found this position when I was just looking for a way to apply BIM. I've been learning about it for years and just found this job opportunity for a BIM coordinator. I was like, I got to check this out. So I went to the interview, which was on site at a project site, and they had a BIM lab set up in the trailer with the smart board and the BIM workstation, and I had a model up on the smart board. And somewhere in the interview, the guys that were talking to me just stepped out of the room to confer. And as soon as they closed the door, I headed to the board and started playing with it. And so they come back in, and I'm up there with my hands spinning the model around and zooming, and they were like, "Yep, that's the guy." So that's what led me to VDC. So I saw the toys, and I said, "I want to play with these."
Nice.
Sounds good. That's a good reason. All right, Michelle.
Yeah, hi. Thanks so much for having us. I guess a little bit about me. So I've been with Gilbane for about 6 years now, and I started out studying architecture. I got my professional bachelor's degree at the University of Arizona down in Tucson, and was approached out of school by the group, the VDC group in Phoenix. That we're kind of this wild, wild west. We're bringing technology to an industry that, like it or not, we're coming kind of scenario. And it was really exciting to be a part of, leaders that were very excited to teach people new things and also learn, about an industry that they might not have necessarily been trained in. So, as a trained designer coming in, and I always knew that like the nitty gritty details were really interesting to me. If it didn't feel right, and if you didn't think you could overlap a wall with another wall and make that magic happen in the field or in the real world, that was really intriguing, and that is translated really well into our role, which we're kind of a hybrid between design and construction, where we have this like crystal ball, I guess, if you will, of the building digitized. So we come prepared with sometimes we come prepared with problems, but that always have solutions. So yeah, that's a little bit about me.
I like the way you put that. That was that's great. And I mean, you and Joe have had a very interesting, path into where you are today with Gilbane. Yeah, Grace, how about you?
Hey guys. So first off, Katie, Matt, thanks again for having us on. I have been a Gilbane VDC engineer for almost 2 years now. And before that, like Michelle, I studied architecture. I got my master's of architecture at the University of Kansas. And what brought me onto VDC was my last year at Kansas. I participated in 804, which was a design build studio where graduate architecture students designed and built a project. In my case, it was 2 houses, and took all year. And we were a part of every single step of the process. Like, we were brought on before we even had a lot of land. We walked in the first day. The professor's like, "Okay, guys, go around, scout some land for us to purchase." We conceptual design. We submitted construction documents. I mean, we were there first day, breaking ground with our shovels, poured concrete, all the way to custom cutting, flashing, metal flashing details, etc. And honestly, that design build studio was the one that pushed me into VDC, because I realized on site how much could really, I guess, go wrong, and how much problem solving occurred on site. And I really took an interest in trying to bridge that gap from drawing inconsistencies or issues that could occur on site. And that's kind of where I landed in my VDC route. That's me. Thanks.
That's great.
Yeah, love that. Love that. And Taylor, you want to bring us home?
All right. Joe, you might need to mute when I talk. Since we're so close. Okay. Yeah. Kind of a similar backstory to everyone else. So I got my Bachelor of Architecture and Interior Architecture at Auburn. And I guess a little different from everyone else. I didn't really have any idea what BIM VDC was before I ended up talking to people from the VDC department at a career fair, and then kind of got brought in that way. But I think one of the funny things is, in school we always had a joke when we were designing, and our teachers would ask us, like, how does this actually get built in real life? And we'd be like, oh, that's for someone else, the engineer, contractor, to figure out. And now I'm on that side of having to help figure it out.
Love it. I love it. I mean, each of you has brought such a unique journey to where you are today. I mean, starting with seems in the design, but then being able to come together and bridge into this technology space too, kind of marrying those two things. So to kick us off, I mean, each of you within this field of VDC, can you tell us, what does VDC actually mean, and what are your primary roles and responsibilities?
Okay. VDC is it's a transition process. We are, as Grace said, we're a bridge between design and construction. We bring the design team and the trade teams work together and try to match those things up and develop the design to the point where it is a coordinated system and can lead directly into installation with the least amount of issues in the field. Our goal is to prevent issues from occurring out there by figuring them out in our virtual environment.
So to piggyback, oops, sorry.
Yeah, no, go ahead. Go ahead, Michelle.
Yeah, to piggyback, I think one of our strongest assets to our teams is our ability to take a very complicated project, which every single one is very complicated in its own way, and simplify it for anyone that touches it to better understand more quickly than traditional methods would have allowed for. So, the saying that a picture is worth 1,000 words. Well, we have thousands of pictures, and that, I think, is the thing that we can constantly revisit and look at how can we simplify the complexity 1,000 times over what we're already doing. And it's exciting to see where the technology is allowing us to go with that.
Yeah.
Absolutely. A model is 100,000 words.
Yeah, exactly.
Easy.
Yeah. I always like the analogy or the comparison of like you have your flat 2D drawings that you receive from the designers and the engineers, and then it needs to eventually be an actual project, a physical project. And we keep saying this bridge, this transition piece, we exist here. We blow up those 2D drawings into 3D, mess around in the 3D model, problem solve, etc., so that we can make the project install process as efficient and easy as possible. I'm really breaking it down, but I always like that that comparison there.
Yeah, absolutely. And so is there you guys work in a specific modeling place? I mean, how do you blow up those drawings? How do you kind of navigate in that realm of looking at them in 3D, then being able to see really intricately?
We use a bunch of different tools. I guess I feel like Taylor might be a good one to answer this. She's our like dynamo master over here. We use a variety of different tools and softwares, but Taylor.
Yeah, our biggest, I guess, thing we use is a one software, Navisworks, that lets us put together all the design models and all the trade contractor models, and that's kind of where our process lives and takes place. And we work out, we try to identify all the problems before they become problems in construction, and solve them then in that virtual world, and create like basically a computer version of what's going to be built.
And to expand on that, each project is different. Each project is a snowflake. That's what a lot of BDC engineers say. So depending on when we're brought on to a project, the needs of the project might differ, and we're able to use different softwares and technologies to solve that particular problem. Like, for example, let's say we need to figure out, we're doing a renovation on something, and it would be a good idea to identify which vertical chases are going to be new ones cut out, or we need roof patching to occur. So I could go into Illustrator, I could go into Bluebeam, go into Revit, create sheets, and create a deliverable that highlights where those vertical chases are. So we can, just simplification there.
Wow.
Absolutely. Well, most of the design models that we get come in Revit. Most of the architectural engineering groups are now switching to Revit. There are some that are still using AutoCAD platforms, like fire protection tends to be still in AutoCAD. We also use laser scanning to capture existing conditions and compare those point cloud models to the design models and match those things up. And as Grace mentioned, we push that off into various deliverable formats, from Illustrator to Bluebeam, whatever is going to best illustrate the problem being brought to us, and give the team something to figure out a solution with.
Yeah.
So Joe, BDC is a process, and then you use a number of tools like drones with laser scanning for like an existing project where you've got major renovation going on. Either Bluebeam, Revit, for Revit really for 3D modeling. And then I guess tell me about how BDC can make the job site safer, because it seems like technology is we're the last industry to kind of get disrupted by technology, and this is kind of an exciting time for us as contractors, because we're able to use technology to make safer projects, leaner projects, more efficient projects at a lower cost, and a better outcome for our clients. And VDC is kind of right in the middle of all of that.
Oh, absolutely. I can definitely give you an example of that. On a hospital project that I was involved with, we had a mechanical trade who was not totally sold on the idea of the BIM coordination process. In his view, he was the project manager on site, and he wasn't sure that the time was worth it until he got hanger points directly from the model and was able to go out in the field with his guys in a Trimble station and drill holes in the metal deck and put in those blue banger threaded rod sockets ahead of the slab pour. Instead of having two guys on a 16-foot 16-foot ladder with a hammer drill spending 3 days drilling holes in concrete to put epoxy sockets in there, he sent two guys out there to put in 3,000 points in 2 hours by putting it through the slab and having it cast into place, where all they had to do was go thread a rod and hang their duct. So after he did that once, he went out and bought a second $50,000 Trimble station because it was worth it to get two teams out there to lay out points. He became the biggest evangelist for the VDC process on that site.
Love it. From a safety, oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I was just saying that's one example of what we do constantly, which is just asking the question over and over again. How can we make this better? How can we make it faster? How can we make this happen more efficiently? We're sitting there, with a eagle eye on the whole project because we have it living digitally in our computer, and we're like, okay, we can see that. Let's say there's going to be this particular thing happening over and over again. How can we make this happen quicker, faster, better, etc.?
I like the idea also of VDC. I was doing some research prior to this podcast, and Gilbane, incidentally, I Googled VDC in construction, and sure enough, there are like 3 articles, all on the first page by Gilbane. And so Tony O'Day is your director of corporate safety, and he was talking about in this one article I was reading in Building Design and Construction that how you use VDC for safety, and that soft tissue damage is the most costliest event you can have on a construction site when you consider workers' comp. And then looking at VDC is kind of like a 4-dimensional aspect. So you have an existing site, and then you look at all the safety provisions you're going to put in as you're either renovating that facility or you're building that construction site. Can you talk a little bit about some of those examples?
Yeah, we definitely have the ability to help with, site logistics, looking more at the macro big picture. How does it make sense to move on the site if we sequence, if we work on this side of the building and we're installing, the mechanical system, can we get started with fire protection on this side of the building and begin to, better manage that planning is definitely key. I think where we see the greatest impact to safety is our ability to reduce the amount of rework necessary. So, if we're doing our jobs well, the majority of the systems have been, pre-organized in a way that, we know where the duct is going, we know where the fire line is going. So those two contractors aren't in the field arguing about, wait, you put that where I'm supposed to be, and who's going to move, and have those types of conflicts. The more we can reduce those, there's less coming up and down ladders like Joe's talking about, or taking one thing and putting it over here. If we're doing it once and it's planned really well in advance, you have less material that's on the floor from taking that stuff down. And again, have less people on site. And I know we definitely want to get into the weeds on some of the prefabrication we're seeing in the industry, and that's also helping as we're taking more off the site, off the job site, doing it maybe in a more controlled warehouse where things are at they're at, chest level or, work table level, rather than having to get up on a ladder. You're greatly impacting people's day-to-day well-being and the environment that they can work in. We're seeing that a lot.
That's a really good point, especially taking work that can be done that doesn't necessarily need to be in a hot area.
Right.
The construction side, I love that point.
I think another good example on a project we had recently was we've had a couple projects where they've had leaks up on like a 22nd, 23rd floor that it's really tough to get someone up there to take a look at, and we're able to fly the drone up and inspect that area, get video and pictures of things like that. So it definitely helps with safety.
Yeah, absolutely.
I know everybody's had a tough year, especially in construction with COVID, and we've all had job sites where we've had the incidences, and you've got to go through those procedures. How has the advancement of technology or VDC, specifically with this pandemic, made the job site safer?
We were very fortunate in the fact that our company had a lot of very solid infrastructure already in place for remote presence, especially from the VDC standpoint. Most of what we do is through on-screen meetings. We meet with design and trade teams that are all across the country and sometimes. So we were already prepared for that. And because of that, we were able to help lead the other groups involved across our company into utilizing that tool. It was almost like flipping a switch. Everybody just switched to virtual meetings for the most part, and there were some bumps along the way, but because we had already invested the money and the time into putting in place all this tech, we were ready to take on that level of bandwidth and stress on our systems.
So you basically mainstreamed this technology across the board for Gilbane, for the entire staff, field for everybody.
Oh yeah.
I think for the coordination and that side, VDC is definitely, we continue to leverage that and see how we can do it better. Across our company, though, we've also seen our field teams, work coming from a different side of need, and started to adopt these wearables. Either initially it was more for monitoring, maybe it's a high security type project where certain people shouldn't be in certain areas, or just back to the safety concern of maybe you're in a high tornado watch area or lightning watch area. So a lot of our project teams were already adopting things like wearables to help make sure we knew where people were in case of an emergency. If an emergency was to happen on site, people had that device on, and we could know everybody got out safely. And it was also used, in an event, if something were to unfortunately happen, you have those devices that can very quickly alert the team to something going on. So Gilbane, we've already been leading the industry, and luckily a lot of those adoptions already occurred before COVID. So once this year hit, we already had things in place for contact tracing. If there was somebody that unfortunately came down with COVID, we're quickly able to respond and put things in place to make sure that we've reduced that impact to our teams.
I love that.
Yeah, it was a lot of just repurposing things we already were using.
Exactly.
It's like, we can use it for this too. Cool.
Yeah.
So what other industry trends are you seeing that are being driven by advancements in technology from a Gilbane construction perspective?
I'll take that one. So a couple things. First off, huge, like Michelle said previously, huge increase in prefabrication. Whether that is prefabricated MEP composite racks, which is in my background, as well as Joe's, Which, I mean, at the end of the day, to break it down, what that is your MEP systems, your conduit, your ductwork, mechanical pipes, etc. They all need to be structurally supported somehow, and that normally includes hangers individually. But if you can zoom that out, and if you can create a composite hanger for all these systems, that is less coordination that is needed. B, saves time, and like what Michelle said, safety wise, being able to create these off-site in a more controlled environment, always better safety-wise. And prefabrication for more than just these MEP composite racks. We're also seeing prefabrication in the healthcare industry in particular, some like prefabricated components for patient rooms, like head walls or bathroom pods or sinks, many items like that. And I had one more. Another trend that we're seeing with this advancement of technology is virtual site walks and virtual site tours. There's a bunch of different technologies out there. We've used HoloBuilder, 3D Vista, including 360 photos to bring the job site to honestly anybody at the touch of a button, which can be fantastic for documentation purposes, etc.
That's really a really cool point. I mean, I think about the cost. I had a national job. I've been in construction for about 22 years now, and traveling around the country, going to look at my Austin airport project, for example, the cost, the time to get out there, really for just a 2-hour site visit, that's amazing. And I think it's a tremendous value to the client. You're bringing down the cost of construction overall. You think about all the different trades, as well as just the coordination aspect, because you can do more of it. So I think that's really cool.
Yeah, absolutely. And like you mentioned, it could be whether it was another VDC engineer we had working on a project that was across the country, or if it was an architect that wanted to check out site conditions, they also happen to not be in that state. Absolutely, it saves time and it saves money there.
And it's part of a continuum of keeping a finger on what's going on with the project. With the tools that we have available to us now, a 3D camera on a helmet mount, your average PE can go out and walk the site once a week and capture more information than a group of 6 people going to the site and spending half a day walking can gather. And then it becomes part of the ongoing documentation of the project, which helps from the standpoint of liability and legal coverage. It also gives that opportunity for that information to be put on a site that is accessible for anyone connected to the project at any time, and it can be reviewed in a time basis against other walks. So there's all kinds of multi-purpose activities that can come from a single capture of data. And that's a lot of what we do, is try to see how many different ways a single chunk of data can be repurposed to the good of the project.
I love that. And just using technology and VDC as a process to optimize all those different aspects of the construction project. Really, this is probably one of the most exciting parts of construction. When you look at, we really have been building buildings the same way over and over for a really long time. And just listening to what you guys have had to say just gives me pause, and just it makes me really optimistic for where we can transform the industry. I came in 99, and I remember I was just graduated from college, and one of the superintendents like, man, you guys are ruining construction with your spreadsheets, and just trying to bring something like that to optimize a process. And then we're looking at what is going on here, and it's just really exciting. So Gilbane's obviously at the forefront of VDC, and just from my research, and I've done a lot of projects with Gilbane, specifically here at the CDC in Atlanta. I did 3 projects with Gilbane, so I have a lot of experience with Gilbane. But what makes your project, your VDC process unique? And we already touched on a lot. So this may be a redundant question.
Yeah, I think we've touched on a couple things. As we said before, that like our coordination is a preventative process. We're trying to find these issues beforehand in the model and prevent things from happening out on site. And I think one of the things that also Michelle has touched on that makes it unique, all of us with our architecture design background, I think one of the things that you learn pretty heavily in design school is visual communication. So like diagramming and presenting complicated problems, being able to break those down and share them with everyone on the project, everyone being able to understand through those deliverables what is going on and what the solutions are. Another thing is we're constantly trying to improve our processes. So taking the things that we're doing day to day and streamlining those, making them better. One of the things that I've been working on a lot are different plugins and things like for Revit, one called Dynamo, and it's like a visual computer programming plugin. So I've used that a lot to streamline my day-to-day operations and to kind of have that process automated, so I have time to do other things, and then also being able to share my process with, say, Grace on any of her process on her projects, being able to take my workflow and share it with everyone else. So we're always working, even in our different locations, to help each other be able to improve what we're doing.
Yeah, Taylor is way too humble here. She is like the master at this plugin Dynamo. I am so glad she's over here in Atlanta, and we touch base here and there. And I've actually absolutely love collaborating with Taylor. Learned a lot from her.
Yeah, I will definitely second that. It's not just workflows and process documentation. It's these scripts, these programming scripts that she's developing and helping the rest of the VDC group continue to learn and develop, will become part of a set of automation tools for our project setup process that will help standardize and take care of a lot of the heavy lifting on the front end of project setup that we all have to do every project, and this will streamline that process significantly. So it's huge.
Yeah, and Taylor, back to your point of like constantly trying to improve. I mean, I'm seeing improvements project to project. We're always challenging ourselves to, try to figure out how to make this better. How can we do our processes better? That's why I check in with Taylor here and there, as well as Joe and other VDC engineers in our, across the country, because they might have figured something out that I didn't, or they might have a cool, way that they do their coordination process or use a certain technology a certain way that I could learn from, and vice versa.
Matt, I loved your reference back to, bringing the Excel spreadsheets out to site and that being the wave at that time. And what's really neat is, knowing the way that Taylor and Grace and Joe are looking at our own documentation. Like, Taylor's talking about this way of taking a lot of data and simplifying it in, either a similar way of a listing out of those items. But what's really neat is, I think what's coming next, and we're already seeing it, is what is the field installation or the field feedback and automation of that's coming. So like where we're starting to see, the quote unquote real time, when something goes in and is installed, how do I know that same thing that I have in my model are in the same spot or represented the same way? Or, how does a change in that routing come back to us in real time, and that next wave of automation or installation tracking and feedback is super exciting. Maybe hopefully it's not 10 years out. It's probably a couple years out. Maybe it's tomorrow. I don't know. But thinking about all of the investment that our VDC team and the industry is putting into trying to be more agile and adaptive is really exciting. And yes, Taylor absolutely doesn't do herself justice with her programming skills to put it more specifically. She's scripting over there like a wizard. So
that's really exciting what you're talking about, and it can't come soon enough, because if you think about all the different trades on a job site and all the different sequencing that has to happen, and being able to see work in place and know when you need to send your tradesmen out, that's a game changer. It takes the Microsoft project schedule and just it's like it's on steroids. It's exponential, the kind of productivity we can gain. So no, that's super exciting. I think that's going to bring the cost of construction down considerably. And I think it's going to help our timelines, in bringing down, what might have taken a year and a half, how much could we possibly shrink that, and think about, all, the compression that exists, at the end of a project, all that compression, it costs lots of money, and the drain it puts on the trades. And I think that a lot of it could be eliminated with what you're talking about.
Sure. And definitely for us, that doesn't mean compromising a vision and a design. Like, that doesn't limit it doesn't put us in a box. And I think, that's where you start to kind of hear, if we rush all this, what do we lose in the process? And I think, for the four of us, we're so passionate about, what the final product looks like, that, I stay really excited to see as an industry how we can keep evolving together and not cut corners that don't gain us anything,
Love that. Well, thank you all so much. I mean, the insight in this conversation, and I mean, it was so amazing. So thank you, all four of you, so much for joining us today.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks.
So if someone wanted to learn more about Gilbane, maybe get in touch with each of you, maybe we can go around starting with Joe, and you guys can share where someone might reach out to you and learn more.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I've got a profile on LinkedIn, of course, like everyone else. And then, of course, my email, jperkins1@gilbaneco.com.
Awesome.
Willing to pass on my knowledge to anyone who needs it.
Well, thank you. Michelle?
Yeah, similarly, LinkedIn, my super secret email of mleonard@gilbaneco.com. We'll have a trend here. Love to hear from the extended community for sure.
Awesome. Grace?
Same thing. LinkedIn profile, Grace Kennedy, and my Gilbane email has a 1 at the end of it. gkennedy1@gilbaneco.com.
Awesome. And Taylor, bring us home.
I, like Grace, have a 1, so it's toswald1@gilbaneco, and LinkedIn. And then I would also say our Gilbane Building Company main LinkedIn a lot of times is posting some of the work that VDC does, drone videos and things like that. So there's a lot of interesting stuff to find on there too.
Good point, Taylor. Nice.
Thank you all for tuning in today as we created some technology harmony with Gilbane. Thank you to our amazing Gilbane panelists for giving such an insightful look into the future of construction technology. To stay up to date on all things Symphony, you can follow us on LinkedIn, Facebook, and YouTube at Symphony Technology Solutions. To learn more about Gilbane, visit gilbaneco.com. That's GILBANECO.com. And follow them on LinkedIn at Gilbane Building Co. Again, our Thought Leadership series is sponsored by The Inside, and you can follow them on LinkedIn and YouTube at Inside Access Control. Thank you all again, and we will see you next time.